Respected Chairman sir and dear colleagues, बैसाखी के लिए आप सबको मेरा हार्दिक शुभकामनाएं. I am starting this first on modifications in BOT toll projects. And this is the journey so far. BOT toll projects started in our ministry in July 1995 with the first set of 5 BOT projects, which include Nellore bypass, second Vivekananda bridge, Durg bypass, like that. We started in July, way back in July 1995. Our journey and experience is unique. And in 2002, we entered Jaipur Kishangarh concession agreement, which was used as a model concession agreement till 2007. And it's the mother document for drafting the MCA of 2007-8. Then we started using MCA model concession agreement starting from 2007. And thereafter, certain modifications were made in that document by B.K. Chaturvedi committee in November 2009. Since then, several amendments have been made in the model concession agreements. And then we have come up with a capacity augmentation projects, a separate MCA that is primarily for the projects where tolling is in progress, and we are going for augmenting that section of the project highway. So wherever tolling is happening, we use this document. So primarily today I am concentrating on that document. If you see the number of BOT projects during 2006 to 2013 peaked, with a peak during 2009 to 2011. This was primarily because at that time there were instructions first to test each and every project on BOT toll, failing which on BOT annuity, and then only on item rate. At that time there was no EPC or HAM. So most of the projects were awarded during this peak period, and there were aggressive biddings by the promoters, and then it ran into several problems. Then the government had come up with certain schemes to revive the stuck projects. First, harmonious substitution was introduced, where the concessionaire was allowed to exit with a nominated substitute company by the senior lenders. Then we permitted 100% equity divestment after 2 years of completion of BOT projects, irrespective of year of award. Because in the earlier agreements, there was a provision that even after 2 years, 26% equity was to be held by the concessionaires. Then we introduced one-time fund infusion for reviving the stuck projects. At that time, the definition of stuck project was that the project achieved 50% progress and it is lingering or languishing. So that under that scheme, we provided fund infusion to revive the stuck project. Then in the same year, a scheme has come for rationalized compensation to the concessionaire for delays not attributable to them. And then in March 2019, guiding principles for resolution of stuck projects on various modes were issued by the ministry. And primarily this is for NCLT cases. So the modifications in MCA for capacity augmentation, the base document is December 2020. And the need was felt because of several issues. Like Chairman Sir said, we faced several arbitrations, claims from the concessionaires. Then there were certain demands of the investors as well as the lenders for improving the provisions. So considering all those aspects, we tried, and then we first went through what are the various pre-bid query of bidders in the bids means few bids only were invited during the last 3-4 years. You have seen in the graph. So hardly 4-5 bids received on BOT toll. In those projects, what were the query of bidders and how we addressed that, and then the demands of the industry means are the need of the industry, like the termination payment in case of default of concessionaire before COD. Such kind of demands were also noted. Consultations were held, and then a small group was formed to identify and means broadly work out what are the amendments required. So after that, we went and made a presentation to Secretary Sir in October 2023, and a VC was held with all stakeholders as instructed on 27th October by Secretary Sir, with the investors, potential bidders, and then the bankers. And then we presented first IMC Interministerial Committee meeting was held on 8th January 24. Then a BOT conference was organized. All of you know about that, where we projected 2.1 lakh projects before Honorable Minister, and means covering a length of 5,200 kilometers. Following that BOT conference, another IMC meeting was held on 2nd February 24. Then again, we were asked to consult the industry. Then again, we went and we took a VC with all the potential bidders and the bankers, other interested parties. And then on 22nd February 24, and we discussed these amendments with Niti Aayog also. And at the same time, in the bids, we already included this MCA in the bidding documents. Like, for example, Agra Gwalior, Maharashtra elevated road projects, and Guwahati bypass. We included these modifications in the MCA or the draft concession agreement of bidding documents. So the bidders were aware of these amendments, and then we discussed those amendments threadbare with them in this consultation of 22nd February 24, followed by discussion with Niti Aayog. Then finally we presented to the ministry the amendments with the approval of Chairman Sir, and then ministry approved the amendments on 15th March 24. There were 110 amendments approved. Now I am going by the most important modifications. As the time permits, we can cover as much as possible. First issue is tolling during construction period. The need for this one was felt because in a already tolling project and capacity augmentation project, the toll collection right during the construction period was given to the concessionaire. Initially, in first 5 projects of NHDP phase 5, there was 100% tolling at 100% tolling rate concessionaires used to collect the toll. And in case of delay, the toll collection revenues were going into a sub account of escrow account, and then they could not withdraw from that account because of delays unless the extension is granted by the authority. Then there were several issues in that, like Panipat, Jalandhar, Varanasi, Aurangabad. So these projects languished, and several problems faced in completing these projects. That experience, ministry modified the provision of tolling in capacity augmentation projects in the interest of early completion of project. What ministry did, the tolling rate is reduced to 75%. Considering 2 aspects, one is inconvenience to the road user because of diversions, as well as to encourage the concessionaire for early completion of the project. The tolling rate was reduced to 75%. And there is also another provision that in case of delay happens and construction could not be completed in the construction period, then there shall be no tolling. But we could not implement this no tolling, although the projects got delayed, and primarily the delays were attributed to the authority. So we extended the construction period, and then we signed the settlement agreements with the concessionaires, and with the permission of ministry, we allowed the tolling to continue, although the construction was delayed in that project. Like that, it happened in some projects. Then the concessionaires started claiming on the premium payment. That premium payment actually starts from COD, means plus 1 year. So that date they questioned, and there were several litigations in this matter. So in a way, the continuing with this tolling 75% with the concessionaires has become a headache for all the parties, including the public. So that means then a solution is to be found for that. So accordingly, to encourage the early completion of the project, now the modification is that authority will continue the tolling right with it during the construction period, and in lieu of that, we will pay the concessionaire 10 equal installments linked to the progress. It is called as construction support. So this in one way will control the amount of toll which the concessionaires are the amount of the construction support. And there is a definite incentive to the concessionaire to complete early and take over the project for commercial operations from his side. So we expect with this change, the completion of the projects in capacity augmentation will be ensured quickly. And whatever toll revenue we collect, there now the options for toll collection, 75% rate is one, but there are certain projects where we are making a combination of project highways like Agra Gwalior. In Agra Gwalior, first we make a greenfield highway, and Agra existing highway capacity augmentation is also there. So if we can collect as per the whether we start that capacity augmentation work or not. So 75% or 100% tolling right. So based on that, whatever tolling revenue is coming to us, we fix this construction support. Now this construction support is capped at 40% of total project cost. That means if this construction toll revenues being earned by the authority during the construction period is more than 40% of TPC, then we offer only 40% of TPC. Further, this construction support plus equity support, that is the grant sought by the bidder, cannot exceed 40% of TPC, which is the fundamental principle of BOT projects, that the grant cannot be more than 40%. So in either case, that is construction support cannot exceed 40%, or construction plus equity support cannot exceed 40%. So with this principle, now we have structured this clause, and this construction support will be paid in 10 equal installments linked to the physical progress. How to determine the physical progress was given in a format in Annexure 1 of Schedule G by giving weightages to various construction items of the project highway, and this accordingly the linking to the physical progress, these 10 installments would be paid to the concessionaire. And if a concessionaire seeks equity support over and above the construction support, that will be paid as per the existing provision in the contract in the form of grant during the construction period. That is a separate thing, but both put together cannot exceed 40%. Next. The next major change is in definition of debt due. And there were several interpretation issues in determining the debt due as well as termination payment in case of terminations. And several termination payments were held up or went into litigation because of the lack of clarity in debt due definition. Then the internal policy guidelines were issued in February 2021, to determine the debt due. Again, there also some kind of interpretation issue came. Then this issue discussed several times with Secretary Sir as well as the Niti Ayog. Both of the view that there should be clarity in the clause. So what we have done now is that an example, an illustration has been given. Now the existing provision is saying the main problem has come in these sentences. If you see the definition of debt due, which says it is some outstanding on transfer date, that is the termination date, excluding any part of principal fallen due for repayment 2 years prior to transfer date. This excluding principal fallen due for repayment, this caused interpretation issues. Then we have come up with Schedule X, which gives, this is a new schedule introduced by us on outstanding debt. There was both pros and cons in giving this Schedule X, but finally all supported in giving Schedule X, that is the outstanding debt. What we have done for different concession periods, what would be the debt payment or debt payment schedule we have indicated in Schedule X. Now why we have taken this role, which is primarily of the senior lenders. There are reasons for that. In some of the financial close documents, there were bullet payments after a period, say 5 years period, one bullet payment like that. Suppose if termination happens in between that, then our termination liability will accordingly means the implication will come. And some of the lenders, particularly the private financial institutions, so they were backloading the debt payment schedule. So considering all those things, we discussed with the banks whether at all to touch this aspect or not. Finally, all of them supported us to give this schedule. And then we worked out initially the schedule, and then we discussed again with the bankers whether this is okay or not. So taking their suggestions, we have given quarter-wise debt repayment schedule for different concession periods of 15, 20, 25 years by taking construction period say 2 years, then a moratorium of 6 months and a tail period of 1 year. Leaving this excluding this from the concession period, whatever quarter come, now for those quarters payment schedule has been defined. Then we have also given the liberty to the lenders or the not the lenders, it is for the at the time of making the bidding document to change that the repayment schedule in case of any block of 5 years of concession period. We have also provided for the change in the repayment schedule corresponding to the extension of concession period or the reduction in concession period we grant for actual traffic based modification, that is clause 29. So linking to that, if the concession period changes, there is liberty to change this repayment schedule quarter wise corresponding to that period. Illustration has been given. Everything, now there is illustration to bring clarity. So wherever there is a need of illustration, it has been incorporated so that there is no ambiguity in interpreting the clauses. So accordingly, first of all, whether there is a need or not, threadbare discussed with the bankers, and we came to the conclusion that yes, it is required, and we have given that Schedule X. Then we defined the debt due as principal outstanding on transfer date, but excluding any part of principal fallen due for repayment 1 year prior to transfer date, limited to outstanding 1 year prior to transfer date computed as per Schedule X. So that has to be limited. I'll show you the illustration we have given. So earlier it was 2 years. Why at all these 2 years or 1 year? This was also discussed. The termination process itself takes time. you know the time schedule for issuing the cure period, intention to terminate, then lender substitution right, their failure, then go for termination. So this process will take 1 year at least. So instead of 2 years, we made it 1 year. Then there is also a disaggregation of debt and equity to be done while determining the termination payment. Presently, we were saying that whatever present clause provides that whatever is the debt due, suppose if termination payment comes and TPC minus, if it is minus termination, this debt due totally it will be attributed as debt due only. But to avoid 100% of termination payment to go in the form of debt due, there is a cap kept on the debt due also in the form of 85% of TPC. So with this, I go to the illustration. Now this is the illustration. Suppose if a total project cost is 1000 crore and financing agreement says debt equity ratio of 75-25 with 1200 crore as the project cost. That is the factor to be determined. That is 1000 by 1200 is 83%. Then principal amount of debt is, say, out of 1200 crore, 75% debt was, that is 75% of debt comes to 900 crore. Then adjusted to this TPC, it comes to 750 crore. If termination happens, then how to calculate the termination payment? If termination happens on 31st December 2023, then first we see as per the financing agreement, what is the debt repayment schedule. So suppose if you take 2 years prior, it's 100% debt outstanding, then 90% debt outstanding in December 22 and 80% in December 23. So if I put the figures, then those figures to be restricted to the TPC, that is multiplication factor of 1000 by 1200 for the increase in TPC in the financing document. Serial number 3 gives the amounts at different points of time, that is 2 years prior to the transfer date. Then actual principal amount of debt outstanding is 900, 850 and 850, which means suppose 810 crore was the outstanding as per the financing agreement, that is 90 crore was to be paid, 900 minus 810 was to be paid by December 22, but concessionaire paid only 50 crore here. So that's how actual outstanding, serial number 4 is coming to 850 crore. Then in the next year, that is December 22 to December 23, he did not pay anything. So the same outstanding remained in December 23, whereas as per financing agreement, the debt should have come down to 720 crore. That is repayment of 90 crore should have happened, whereas concessionaire did not pay anything. So this actual amount of debt outstanding again multiplied with the factor of that 83%. Now that comes to serial number 5. If we go compute it as per Schedule X, the Schedule X gives the repayment and the outstanding as 750 crore in December 21, 660 crore in December 22, and 580 crore in December 23. Now, what is the termination payment? 7 to 11 is the termination payment determination. That is debt due outstanding determination. Debt due as per serial number 7, principal amount provided by senior lenders under the financing agreements, that is 708.33. This is coming from the 5th serial number 5, 708.33, serial number 5, last column, that is 31st December 23, 708 crore, less any part of the principal that had fallen due for repayment 1 year prior to the transfer date. That is 708 minus 675. If you see the serial number 3, that gives, as per the financing agreement, they should have repaid or the outstanding should have been only 675 crore. Whereas the outstanding actual serial number 5 in December 22, 1 year prior to the transfer date, is 708. So the difference, that is 33.3 crore, is to be reduced from the debt outstanding on the transfer date. That is 708 minus 33.3, which comes to 675. Whatever combination you make, this 675 crore is nothing but 1 year prior to the transfer date, what is the debt outstanding as per financing agreement. If you see serial number 3, say 675 crore December 22 is appearing, that will come. That is serial number 9 is nothing but serial number 3 December 22 figure, that is 675 crore. And out of that, what is the amount outstanding as per Schedule X? Schedule X is given by the authority in the bidding document. The debt outstanding figure 1 year prior to the transfer date is 660 crore. So finally, the debt due works out to 660 crore. So this is the illustration we have given in the MCA itself, so that there is no confusion in what is to be deducted in case of excluding 1 year prior to the transfer date. So this will take care of all the interpretation related issues in determining the debt due. Next. Then coming to another important modification, that is modification in concession period relating to actual traffic versus target traffic. The MCA of capacity augmentation projects provide for adjustment of concession period every 5th year by comparing the actual traffic with the target traffic in terms of PCUs as per IRC 64/1990. This has gone into several interpretation issues, particularly by the concessionaires, stating that the PCU factor of 3-axle vehicle and truck 2-axle vehicle and then multi-axle vehicle. So what is the PCU factor to be taken? They say that it has to be taken as 3, that is 2-axle and 3-axle same. Means primarily their argument was that it's a rigid body, whether it may be 3-axle, 4-axle, 5-axle. If it is a rigid body, then it has to come, PCU factor has to come only 3. Now we have to note that in 1990, there were no multi-axles in our country. Further, in a BOT project, everything is linked to finances. The background of any kind of compensation should be to keep the concessionaire in the same financial position. So if there are categories of vehicles with toll rates given in the fee notification, now those categories related PCU factor to be taken. Now if you apply a PCU factor of 3 for a 3-axle vehicle and that is getting toll rate under multi-axle vehicles category, earth moving equipment machinery related rate, then it is unfair to the authority. Means it is unfair to give only a factor of 3 to that. So because the financials are to be seen, then if you accordingly the PCU factor was not giving a right picture of the number of means actual traffic on the road with respect to the target traffic given, then we thought over this and then we thought that it would be prudent to come with a equivalent vehicle unit. This has come out of the group of vehicles, categories of vehicles listed in the fee notification. So we have defined the equivalent vehicle unit, and then the target traffic will be given in terms of this equivalent vehicle unit, and the actual traffic will also be measured in terms of equivalent vehicle units. Then these units are in a one way reflection of what is the toll rate relating to that particular category of vehicle. In the definition under class 48, equivalent vehicle unit has been defined with factors like this. If you see truck bus, a factor of 3, which you know is the factor of 3, and then 3-axle toll rate is roughly 10% above the 2-axle truck bus rate. So it has come to 3.3 equivalent vehicle unit factor. So in relation to the truck bus tolling rate, corresponding tolling rate of the remaining groups taken, and accordingly their EVU, equivalent vehicle units factors, have been indicated in the definition of equivalent vehicle units. Now this will take care of the toll rate of a particular vehicle and its corresponding PCU factor. So if you see the categories of vehicles under 1997 fee rules, there were only 4 categories, and 3-axle means after truck bus, then 3 axles are being charged under multi-axle category, that is a higher rate, but giving a factor of 3 will again is not a correct thing. Similarly, in 2008 fee rules, there were 5 categories, but with an amendment in 2011 to the 2008 fee rules, 6 categories have been made, and 3-axle has been made a separate category. A discussion also happened what will happen in future. Suppose if another category is introduced. So we submitted that in the same manner, linking to whatever toll rate you give to that particular, say, new category of vehicle, say serial number 7 it comes in future. So proportionate to the truck bus toll rate, we can easily put the EVU factor to that kind of new category of vehicle. So it will take care of the future also. So with this, we have overcome the definition of PCU in IRC 64/1990 to be used in class 29.1. So this will give, because we are giving this upfront to all the concessionaires, there will be no problem, and they will account for all these things accordingly, because their toll revenues, when they project the toll revenues, they take the categories of vehicles, which are presently 6 categories of vehicles are there. Then here we also feel that the projects on BOT toll in future would be a combination, in the sense there is a brownfield project, like say for example Agra Gwalior, and we want to construct a greenfield corridor. So both corridors put together we give to one concessionaire under one concession agreement. Then Agra Gwalior brownfield corridor may be having open tolling, whereas greenfield corridor may be having closed tolling, or even brownfield corridor will be made access controlled. So we presently class 29 says that we have to take average traffic at all the toll plazas to come to the actual traffic for determining the adjustment of concession period. Now we have come up with weighted average of toll plazas, that is effective length of travel. Why effective length? Because each toll plaza may be having a bypass structure. So in case of structure 10 times, bypass 1.5 times, so effective length will come into picture. At a particular toll plaza, there must be some effective length of tolling which determines the toll rate at that toll plaza. So considering that effective length and number of vehicles divided by the total project highway length, so we come up with the total weighted average traffic at the toll plazas. If there are 2 separate corridors, as I said, if it is a brownfield combined with a greenfield, what is the brownfield corridor traffic? work out separately and greenfield corridor traffic work out separately, put them together, and then that will be the total traffic to compare with the target traffic given in the class 29.1. Based on increase or decrease in traffic, every fifth year we do the modification in concession period. Those provisions have been kept as it is. So this is how we tackled this major issue relating to the modification in concession period. I move on. There is also another uncertainty to the promoters, concessionaires, and also the lenders. There is a provision of if the traffic exceeds the design capacity, then an indirect political event triggers, which leads to termination unless it is cured by the concessionaire by augmenting the highway. Earlier, the provision was that authority would undertake the DPR and then capacity augmentation would be undertaken by the authority at its own cost. Concessionaire can participate in that, and then like that the clauses went on. Those were changed in December 20 document that it triggers indirect political event. That is one uncertainty to the bidders as well as investors and the lenders. So to remove that uncertainty, we tried a modification. There is also provision under 27.61 that when traffic in PCU reaches 120% of design capacity, the fee collected above 120% shall be payable to authority. We have never seen such kind of examples in our there are no amounts passed on like this. Then there is another provision that 27.6.2 says if it exceeds the design capacity and the toll collection goes into a safety fund. So these clauses operation and its monitoring is quite difficult. So to address all these issues, we have now deleted first that 27.6.1 and 27.6.2. That is the passing on of the toll revenues after the design capacity to the authority or into the safety fund. Then we have introduced a concept of buyback to overcome this design capacity and indirect political event trigger. So we said now in the modification 29.2.3,
meeting chairman.
Mr. Ashok Kumar Singla, please unmute. Please mute yourself. I request all the participants to mute their voice. Then in the case of class 29.2.3, actual traffic exceeds design capacity in any 2 years in a block of 3 continuous years. This also discussed threadbare several times, whether how to structure this buyback clause. Because if you take 1 year, if it crosses and you go for a buyback, it will be huge liability for the government. And also there may be a freakish high peak in one of the years, which should not be the basis for triggering this clause. So what we finally narrowed down is that in a continuous period of 3 years, if the actual traffic exceeds design capacity in 2 years, then this clause triggers, that is buyback clause triggers. In case the buyback clause triggers, what is the termination payment? That has been defined as 80% of product of average monthly fee into 75% of remaining months of concession period. Now, when a trigger of buyback happens, there is a remaining concession period. In that remaining concession period, say it is 30 months. So we take 22 months as that is 75% of those months we take. the remaining months of the concession period. Why 75%? We assumed that when the peak means traffic increases beyond the design capacity, we have considered 3 years in a block of 2 years. It has to cross in a block of 3 years. That is, there was higher traffic during the peak, and they already collected revenues. That's how we considered 75% of, we considered 75% of the remaining concession period instead of 100% remaining concession period on the date of trigger of buyback. Then 80% of average monthly fee. Why 80%? There are toll collection expenses, there are O&M expenses. So to account for that, the balance 20% has been reduced. That's how 80% of product of average monthly fee has come. Then Niti Aayog said for any such provision there has to be a cap. So this remains. Suppose if something happens and a new corridor with high traffic joins the project highway and it increases the capacity, increases the traffic, and design capacity is crossed in the initial years itself, then it will lead to huge amount of these revenues, means anticipated revenues to be paid. So to avoid such kind of situations, there is a cap kept of this concession. 75% of remaining months concession period shall not exceed 20% of the concession period. This 20% has come primarily that under clause 29 there is upper cap of 20% on increasing the concession period. From this amount, we reduce the cost of major maintenance if it is there in the balance concession period. That is from buyback date till the end of the concession period. If there is a major maintenance provision in the original financing agreements, that major maintenance cost will be reduced. Or means this amount, or the termination for indirect political event, that is debt due plus 110% of adjusted equity, whichever is higher. This is the buyback provision in the modified MCA. So this takes care of uncertainty in the traffic exceeding the design capacity and the worries of both the promoters as well as the lenders. Next. There is another important aspect of additional tollway and competing road affecting the toll revenues on the project highway. The earlier agreements provide that, means the MCA of December 20 provides for no competing road before 10th anniversary of appointed date. Clause 30 says if construction of additional tollway, other toll road of length not exceeding 20% of length of project highway causes increase in concession period beyond 20% of concession period, then the concession period shall be extended from the date of opening of additional tollway till completion of construction period. And these things will go on, there will be tremendous impact both to the bidder as well as to the authority if we see this clause. And there is also the compensation clause. When it is to be used, those uncertainties were there, which we tried to remove. What we have now provided in the modified document is to pay the compensation as given in the clause 35.4, that is the average daily fee and projected fee difference till the next immediate modification date. That is, every 5th year you adjust the concession period for the actual traffic under clause 29. So till the, suppose if a competing road comes in 2023 and in 2025 there is a modification concession period, target date is there, So from 2023 to 2025, we pay the compensation. Then on the target date of 2025, we adjust the concession period for the actual traffic. With that, it is deemed, this event is deemed cured. And to give comfort to the promoters and the lenders, we have also increased the cap of increase in concession period under clause 29 from 20% to 30%. Suppose if additional tollway or competing road comes, the cap, upper cap on the concession period has been increased from 20% to 30%. So with these provisions, additional tollway and competing road facilities coming up, and then impact on the project corridors have been taken care of amply and clearly. Next. Then another important claim on the authority is for the default of the authority, what should be the amount of direct costs and the extension of concession period we consider under clause 35. Clause 35.2 says direct costs, which include interest payment on debt, O&M expenses. PIU Jalgaon, please mute yourself. So direct costs include interest payment on debt, O&M expenses, increase in capital costs, but it shall not include loss of fee revenue or debt repayment. So information in financial package model to be relied upon to work out such costs. This provision has led to several arbitral awards against the authority beyond even the total project cost. Several times of the total project cost, the awards have been given by the arbitrators arbitrarily, and which have been challenged in the courts by the authority, and litigation is going on. So to cut down such kind of litigation and to give clarity, and also to be fair, means when such event happens on account of the authority, what amount the concessionaire will be paid is now clearly defined like this, which we use in our settlements, amicable settlements. So we made use of the experience in amicable settlements, and accordingly we proposed that in case there is a delay attributable to the authority, suppose schedule completion and the actual completion, there is a delay of 3 years when a construction period is 2 years. Now this 3 years delay, out of that 1 year may be attributable to the authority and 2 years may be attributable to the concessionaire, or vice versa. So whatever is the delay attributable to the authority, now how it is to be determined, the independent engineers have enough experience. We have already discussed in 2021 on arriving at proportionate delays attribution to the authority and the concessionaire. So we are using it for quite some time now to determine what is the delay attributable to the authority, how much length or value of work authority delayed or the concessionaire delayed. Accordingly, the delay is to be attributable to both the parties. That is concurrent delay we call, and the delay, apportioned delay, for the apportioned delay to the authority, then we pay the compensation, and this compensation is payable after 60 days of COD plus 1 year. Why this COD plus 1 year kept? Because we wanted to see what is the toll revenue in 1 year of start of toll collection. From that we derive the loss of toll revenue. And we have also given a specific date when we pay this compensation amount, so that there is no confusion in the minds of anybody, and that when it is to be paid and what is to be considered. So we have clearly now defined the payment date of this compensation. What we give is escalation in incomplete work value linked to WPI increase from the base date attributable to the authority. Again, this incomplete work attributable to the authority. Suppose if 30% value of work was delayed due to the authority, so for that 30% value of work, we give the escalation linked to WPI. For the same value of work, we pay the prolongation cost at 8% for the delay period attributable to the authority. That is 1 year out of 3 years or 2 years out of 3 years, whatever is determined based on the delay apportionment. And then loss of fee revenues for that period, again at the rate of 90% of average daily fee of 1 year following COD. This is why we have kept the compensation payment date as COD plus 1 year. So average daily fee we take and 90%. Why 90%? Because there is de-escalation required. We are working out the revenues 1 year before or 2 years before. So that's why instead of giving, again you de-escalate, again the question comes at what percentage de-escalation is to be done. To avoid all those confusions, we have said 90% of average daily fee of 1 year from COD, which gives clarity and there is no ambiguity in the determination of this amount. So we do not give the extension of concession period during the construction period delays. We pay the loss of fee revenues now. And now this has been incorporated in clause 35.2 now. Suppose if delay occurs or delay period attributable to the authority during the O&M period, then we pay the interest on debt due and O&M expenses. Again, this debt due means you have to adjust to the TPC. It is not total debt due. That debt due corresponding to our TPC and then as per the definition, and O&M expenses as determined from original financing agreements. Of course, we give extension of concession period. Suppose there is already clear-cut clause in the concession agreement how to give the extension of concession period during O&M period. So this is how we try to reduce the litigation. So we are hopeful that with this provision, the future litigation will come down, as well as timely payments for the delays of the authority will also be there. Another grievance of the promoters or the lenders is that authority never compensates for its delays. So that's why we have now upfront said we will compensate like this. Next. Similarly, force majeure costs also. Now the force majeure costs, it may be, if it is non-political, either party to meet the cost, this will not come for compensation payment. If it is indirect political, it is 50% payment to be made. If it is political, then 100% cost to be paid. Now in that, what we present provision says, interest on debt, O&M expenses, increase in cost of construction, again not to include fee revenues or debt repayment. So what we modified on the similar lines of authority default, during construction period, escalation in incomplete work value, then prolongation for the force majeure event period. Here we pay interest on debt due also and cost of maintenance of existing road. So this is during the construction period, and after COD, that is during O&M period, interest on debt due and O&M expenses, there is no change in that. And then clause 34.6.2 deals with the extension of concession period in case of force majeure event. So we have not touched that clause. That will remain as it is. This is how we made both for authority default and force majeure cost determination simple and unambiguous. Next. There is another request of the promoters as well as particularly the lenders for termination payment before COD for concessionaire default. There is no termination payment presently for concessionaire default before COD, before completion of work. So the lenders were running in a huge risk. This demand they made for some time now, and we have already accounted for such demand in HAM project. So taking the clue from there and also the original planning commission document on the same provision. So we defined now that there will be no termination payment if the progress is below 40%, and if it exceeds 40%, say if it is 90%, 90 minus 40, that is 50% we consider for termination payment. Out of that, we pay 90% of debt due. So that is how, means it comes to 45% of TPC we consider, and out of that 90% of the debt due we pay. So this is the provision we have now made to give comfort to the lenders that their money is protected. If even in the case of concessionaire default, we will make the termination payment. Next. Another major clause where the differences occurred and litigation happened is change in law. It happened because the clause gives, there is ambiguity in the clause for paying the compensation increase in costs as well as the net after tax return, means whether it is during the construction period or during the operation period or during the tolling period. That was not clear from the existing provision. Now the present clause provides for, as a result of change in law, there is increase in costs or reduction in net after tax return. So this has caused the problem. This net after tax return means it accounts for the toll revenues also, reduction in revenues. Whereas already under clause 29, we are adjusting the concession period, thereby accounting for their losses in toll revenues by increasing the concession period. Now here also this clause is saying in terms of net after tax return, which is in some way duplication with clause 29. So we tried to remove that ambiguity, and we now made it clear that this clause of change in law is only for increase in project costs or increase in O&M costs, but not for compensating the toll revenues. Toll revenues are less traffic related matters will be dealt under clause 29. That is modification in the concession period by comparing the actual traffic versus target traffic. And if still the concessionaire feels that it is not compensated fully, then he has the right under clause 34.4a political event will trigger. He can invoke this provision of 34.4a, which provides for if change in law results in reduction in traffic, increase in concession period beyond 20%. So up to 20% increase in concession period is already provided under clause 29. So if the change in law as per the concessionaire means if it goes beyond 20%, then he can invoke this provision of political event, which will be the termination payment for authority default. So we segregated increase in cost payment as well as the toll revenues aspects here, and then we clearly now said that the toll revenues will be accounted for and will be compensated under the deemed to have been compensated under clause 29, which adjusts the concession period for lower traffic than the target traffic. So these are the modified provisions, and we have deleted reduction in net after tax return. We have also deleted the protection of NPV clause, which is the main crux of the dispute, giving the ambiguity into the clause. So these provisions have been deleted, and we made the clause clear that under the change in law, we give the compensation relating to increase in costs only. And we have also slightly redefined the change in law. Change in law has to result in, it has that have a direct effect on the project. So the definition of change in law is made clear. Then change in law provision under clause 41 is made clear. And if still the concessionaire feels that it is not accounted for, and the impact is going more than 20% of concession period, then he has the right to invoke the political event and take the termination payment for authority default under the political event. Next. Now, I concluded major portion of the major changes modifications made in the MCA. Now, these are the other modifications which are next important category. Reduction in scope of project. This clause is again a bone of contention and several disputes have arisen. For example, Farakka Bridge. The people who dealt with, the officers who dealt with the Farakka Bridge project, BOT toll project of HCC, they are aware, means the existing, at that time, the toll rate for Farakka Bridge was based on the cost of that rehabilitation and widening of Farakka Bridge, and that Farakka Bridge was descoped, and descoping cost determination went up to the board level, and then HCC did not accept that interpretation. Finally, we settled through settlement agreement, but the clause has to be taken care of, because the clause says any work not completed due to force majeure or reasons attributable to authority, concessionaire to pay 80% of sum saved. What is the sum saved? Concessionaires argued that I already mobilized full of my equipment. Now, sum saved is nothing for me. Only material means I have already procured the material. My machinery is lying at the site. What is that I saved by that descoping? So they questioned the valuation of descoped work at SOR by the authority, and the matters went into litigation and then it also says if it causes reduction in net after tax return, as I said, as given in the example of Farakka Bridge, the toll rate was to increase based on the cost of rehabilitation and widening of that Farakka Bridge, which we descoped. Because of descoping, we have not increased the rate correspondingly. So the waiver is to be given full or partial waiver, limited to 80% that of sum saved. It means even if the impact is more than that, we have to limit it to the recovery under the descoping work. That is 80% of the sum saved. Again, this provision is unfair to the concessionaire. If it is impacting more than 80% of the sum saved, then we restricted it to that one. So that's what happened in Farakka Bridge. And finally, we settled through amicable settlement process before CCIE. Now we modified this provision, considering all these things, and also there is a tendency to include punch list B, that is the works delayed by the authority due to problems faced in land or other issues. So we draw a punch list B. Now that punch list B, to discourage that kind of punch list B, or the reasonability, to maintain the reasonability of that punch list, what we have done now, such incomplete work will be valued with reference to the TPC. Say if it is 2% or 5% of TPC, then the concessionaire has to share the toll revenues monthly at that 5% of incomplete value of work. That is monthly toll revenues 5%. If he has not completed the TPC portion of 5%, then 5% revenues to be passed on to the authority. If in that 5%, suppose there is a enhancement to be given by the authority for the structure or bypass, additional rate to be given, then authority will compensate him. So this will go on happening. We will review every quarter, and that incomplete work is completed, then there is no need to share that revenue. Otherwise, for the incomplete value of work, the corresponding toll revenue is to be shared with us. So the idea is to complete the balance works and let the concessionaire take 100%. At the same time, means also there were instances where the where there is huge amount of incomplete work left under the project, but debt was drawn fully. So it would be it would give an idea to the lender also how much value of incomplete work was lying and how much debt was drawn by the. So it will be a check on the concessionaire in drawing the debt also, which is in favor of the lenders. So considering all these things, this provision has been introduced. In fact, this is the idea of my CGM, Sri Pawan Kumar, and he drafted this clause, which I feel that he has done tremendous work in drafting this clause. Next one is delays during construction. There is a provision that if the rate of progress is poor of the concessionaire, IE will issue a notice and then concessionaire will submit a revised program and then it will go on. There is no end. Means it will go on continue. Means what will happen if the concessionaire fails to adhere to the revised program? Nothing has been written. So we introduced now that if the progress in any continuous 3 months is less than 75% of revised schedule, then it triggers the termination under 37.1.1. That is, we give the cure period notice. So there is a check on rate of progress, and normally the milestones, to wait up to the milestones, and after the milestones the project completion. Sometimes there will be huge gap, and the authority feels nothing can be done during that period. But this is one area to check the rate of progress of the concessionaire corresponding to the milestone dates as well as completion date requirements, and the progress has to commensurate with those dates. So to account for that, this has been introduced. And we have also made escrow bank to provide online viewing and downloading of escrow account statements. This new provision, because we feel handicapped for not getting the details of transactions in escrow account. To overcome that, now we have incorporated the provision of escrow bank to provide online viewing of and also downloading of escrow account statement. At the same time, we will also share our monthly progress reports during construction as well as O&M to the lenders' representatives. Then there is another bone of contention between the lenders and the authority about the concession fee payable to the authority, whether it takes precedence over the debt repayment or not. There is a clear-cut clause 31.2c which says that whenever authority makes any payment into escrow account, it will deduct any outstanding concession fee. But it is not supported by the withdrawal order of withdrawal clause, that is waterfall of payments under the escrow account. So to this ambiguity has been modified now, and now the concession fee premium payable to authority takes precedence over the monthly debt servicing, or during even after termination also, if there is outstanding concession fee payable to the authority, that will take precedence over 90% debt due payment, which has already been provided for under 31.2c. So this ambiguity has been cleared. Of course, we discussed with the Niti Aayog and Ministry of Finance on this, what kind of repercussions it will have, but it is the primarily the concession fee or the premium payable to authority should be in the first place to be returned before the drawing of debt by the bankers, and this has been accepted by everybody and incorporated now. Now, in the definition of senior lenders, non-banking financial companies are coming and financing the projects. These are mostly sister concerns of the promoters themselves. They are promoting their own sister concern by taking the loans from them much beyond their net worth. Even net worth, nowhere their net worth, they have hardly 5 crore, 10 crore net worth, but they extend loan of 300 to 500 crore. To overcome that problem, we defined the non-banking financial companies should have at least a net worth of 500 crore. A new format to submit the details of financial package model has been given under Schedule Y, so that proper due diligence has been done by the lenders, as well as what documents exchanged between the lender and the concessionaire, what kind of considerations lenders made at the time of giving such loan would be captured under this Schedule Y. Now, again, we also said the lenders who appraised the project should certify these details. So it's not that mere document submission now. It has to be due diligence and those details of due diligence to be given under Schedule Y. In case of insurance during concession period, there is ambiguity in BOT projects on the amount of insurance to be made. So we made now clear that it has to be not less than EPC cost. Concessionaire enters into an EPC contract with a contract price. So the insurance should be at least to that EPC cost. Another issue is applicable permits in whose name these are to be and for acceptance by the authority. Now, some concessionaires produced the documents of material suppliers with whatever available locally as meeting the applicable permits clause. Now it is made clear that it has to be in the name of concessionaire or party having a valid agreement with the concessionaire. Those permits only can be considered by the authority. As I said, for determining the physical progress for making the construction support, there are weightages given under Schedule G, proportions of EPC contract price for different stages of construction of project highway. So this is in another way also takes care of front loading of expenditure by the concessionaire and their EPC contractors. Now, most of these EPC contractors are the promoters, and we have seen the instances where they front load the expenditure to show the expenditure under the project highway. To take care of that, in one way, the Schedule G will also take care of such instances. So, fair play and fair compensation is the motive of all these modifications. We have tried to accommodate all the requests of the industry, and we exchanged with them, and all felt happy with these modifications. 3 times we consulted, and then only Ministry and Secretary Sir approved these modifications. We hope that as presented to the Honorable Minister on 17th January, 2.1 lakh crore of BOT toll projects, basket of those projects we have shown to Honorable Minister. These modifications will pave way for attracting private participation and moving forward this BOT concept in the highway construction. Thank you.